It is Friday and Bitcoin is at it again. Guys, in this video, we're going to dive down into the world of Bitcoin, taking a look at the price action of BTC, and we're going to have a look at several different things to see what is going on here as Bitcoin has dumped another 8% on the market. Guys, as we get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, hit the like button. Really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then do go ahead and subscribe. Tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto, right? If you're not yet subscribed, then do go ahead. There's a link in the description down below for Discord. If you're not over on Discord, do check it out. We do a lot more kind of TA down there, and obviously you'll be able to ask us any questions that you may have as well. Right, with all that said, done, and out of the way, let's jump on down to the desktop and take a look at what is going on here with Bitcoin. Okay, guys. So this is obviously the recent pullback. It's 8.09% on this kind of flash crash. We bounced, but we'll go through more of that in a moment. The first thing we really need to do is zoom out, because if we're ever in doubt, it's important that we do actually take a big step back, zoom out, take a look at the bigger picture, what is actually going on, and make sure that we're fully aware of the bigger picture, because it is the bigger picture that really matters rather than these micro movements, right? 8% today, up 20% tomorrow, right? These things are the less important in the long-term investment mindset, right? So here we obviously have the weekly chart. This one's a very familiar one, guys. You know what we're going to be talking about here. It is, of course, the Bitcoin weekly close. Very important. The Gaussian channels on here, which is basically just glorified moving averages. So it's important that we do, acknowledge what it is. But now, obviously, the Gaussian channel's got a couple of really good things about it. One is, obviously, we take a look at the history, and we've all can see that during bull runs we're above the Gaussian channel, and once we actually close inside, it leads into a bear market. A bear market in the crypto space is something that we've referenced 18 months to 24 months. It's a long period of time, right? You can of course acknowledge that this was a longer period here between the 2013 bull run and the 2017 bull run, and it's actually relatively short during the 2017 through to 2020. And actually kind of got out of this area back in 2019 before getting pulled back down in 2020 due to the pandemic. So we actually kind of were stunted around here. Okay, so it's an interesting kind of point to say that we expect a extension on the bull run based on time, but actually, if we were to really truly think about it, we had a false start, we got reset, and then we started again, right? So again, just bear that in mind for future bull runs when we start thinking about analyzing the time period, why the 2021 bull run is longer than the previous bull run. Yeah, I think this pandemic has something to do with it. We don't want to just assume that we're going to be extending every single bull run every single time. Like, it's important that we do know that, right? Now, in terms of obviously understanding where we are right now, we are really testing the waters here in terms of what potentially is going to be bullish and what is going to be bearish, right? So I think the bears have control at the moment. I think I said this the last couple of Bitcoin videos that we've done. They've kind of got the upper hand at the moment. But again, at the same time, we are seeing some interesting price points, shall we say, on our hourly chart. We'll go through those in a moment. But here we can see that we're inside the Gaussian channel, okay? As we go into the weekend, we are looking for a weekly close candle above the Gaussian channel, which means we've got our work cut out over the weekend, okay? We've got to get this back up like we did previously in the last 2 weeks, right? We can see the last couple of weeks we've been messing around here, really shaking out retail investors, making people feel like they need to sell at the absolute bottom, okay? So I imagine that we are going to close just outside of this Gaussian channel, just above it yet again. Again, I'll go through why I think this in a moment on the smaller time frames. But right now, it's important that we acknowledge that we are technically inside this channel. And as a result, if we do close here, do expect a pullback of significance that could basically trigger a bear market, as we haven't in history of Bitcoin closed inside this Gaussian channel without a bear market following. Okay, just an interesting observation. Just because this has happened previously, though, doesn't mean it's going to happen again, but it's a good indication of what to expect to happen. Okay, we think about probability rather than what is possible, right? People get those two things confused. We often say, what is possible versus what is probable, okay? If we close in here, I think it's probable that we are going to trigger a bear market with extreme fear kicking in, okay? Coming right the way back down into this lower area, as we had seen previously on 2 separate occasions. If we close in here, just because it's happened in the past doesn't mean it's going to happen again, but there's a high probability that it probably will, okay? And therefore, be mindful of closing inside this channel. And I think the institutions, the whales, the market makers are very aware of of this, right? This particular key area that we need to hold. This is nothing new by any stretch of the imagination, right? So important that we acknowledge that we're there at the moment, and we have a lot of work ahead of us to get back out. And I think that the worst is not over just yet. Do expect some more volatility, right? So let's get into that right now. Let's actually jump on down. Let's first of all remove that Gaussian channel, jump over to Bitcoin to USDT on the Binance data source rather than Bitstamp. And what we'll do is we'll come down into our daily. This is where we've done a lot of the analysis already anyway. And we can see that there is, of course, the head and shoulder pattern. Now, again, as I said previously, we haven't really seen this kind of play out exactly as we would intended it to, right? Again, interesting things. I have actually just moved this right hand shoulder down a little bit, right? But it is possible that it should have actually extended a little bit higher, but we haven't actually seen it. It's not a standard right shoulder. Okay, we've traded kind of down and sideways, but not actually up and down directly, right? In the same way that we saw definitively with this shoulder on the left hand side. We saw a definitive move up and a definitive move down. We aren't seeing that so much. We've had the bounce, and then we just started to pull back down. There's a little bit of volatility here, and there's lots of kind of interesting price points getting hit all around this area, right? So we're not really forming this right shoulder as we would expect it to. This could be the deviation that I've been talking about for a while, because I'm not exactly convinced that this particular pattern is going to play out. Okay, and I think this is a pattern of formation that's kind of been put here to kind of scare people more than anything else. And I say this because we can see lots of very specific price point manipulation going on Bitcoin on the hourly chart specifically. Okay, and we'll go through more of that when we go down into the hourly chart. But right now, this is an interesting spot because we are basically just bouncing around constantly between two key areas. This is almost a continuation pattern more than anything else, right? And normally when you see continuation patterns, you continue in the direction, right? And then the case of Bitcoin here, that would be a downward direction that we'd be going in, a bearish kind of direction. Okay, so a continuation pattern would actually be looking bearish at this point because we would normally trade sideways after moving down, go sideways, go down again. That's kind of how it works. Now on this daily, we can obviously see that stochastic moving up nicely, right? Up to the overbought area, heading up there. Not overbought yet, but getting close. And it's an interesting thing when we start coupling this this continuation pattern, this sideways trade that we're seeing right now, bouncing around these key areas whilst moving this stochastic up to the overbought area. This could lead to further downside, right, on the shorter time frames. So again, you know, although I am bullish on Bitcoin, I'm also very aware that this pattern isn't exactly positive news for Bitcoin holders or for the bull run as a whole, right? So we have to acknowledge this. It's not something we can just hide away from. With that being said, though, with the amount of manipulation on here, it wouldn't surprise me either if we actually see a sustained upward overbought direction as well, as in this price was specifically being pushed in the direction, and basically you're able to sustain it up in an overbought or oversold area. We've seen both of these scenarios over the previous few months. We've seen sustained overbought and sustained oversold areas. So again, anything is possible here, but we do like to lean on what is more probable to help keep us a little bit sane. So knowing that this is continuation sideways trading with a slight downward trend, we should be mindful that this could lead to a downward trend going down lower. And, you know, people have called out 42K as well, you know, talking about potentially coming back down to this lower area to test. And again, that can be as quick as happening in one day, down and out, and you're done, right? Shake out some more investors that are maybe going long after seeing, you know, some continuations. That would actually wipe out our stochastic RSI. We can see something very similar happened up here. It was a couple of days and we were right the way down in this oversold area very, very fast, right? All the way down into this low bounce to the upside. And then we stayed relatively low for a while until recently when we started to actually move the stochastic RSI and getting that momentum going back to the upside, even though we were actually technically trading down over time, setting these higher lows every single time, okay? So again, not the best kind of news here, not really in line with what we'd expect from a right shoulder, but again, something that we could potentially see ourselves working down towards that 42K area. But like I said on that weekly chart, my expectation is to stay above the Gaussian channel on the weekly closes, okay? So I would expect us to close above the Gaussian channel, okay, and then come back down to test this 42K area. Okay, nothing moves in straight lines, and do expect bounces. So I'm expecting a bounce up over the weekend to get dragged down next week, and then once we actually complete this, I reckon we're going to push to the upside. Now that is not actually fulfilling the I guess, purpose of a head and shoulder pattern, right? Normally, when you come down to the right-hand side of a shoulder here, you get more downside. You break that neckline and you basically collapse. It's a bearish signal. With the manipulation on the price point, though, I wouldn't be too surprised if actually we see it go in the other direction, okay? Completely invalidating. I think that's kind of what you're seeing here with this invalidation of the pattern anyway. But I'm mindful that this pattern isn't really in line with my bullish overview of the weekly chart, and the hourly and the daily that are showing us something totally different. Right, so now we have a bit of an idea, right? The weekly chart's looking pretty good, with the exception of the fact that we're inside the Gaussian channel currently. We are oversold, and every time we've been oversold on that weekly chart, we've actually grown massively towards the overbought area. And actually on the weekly chart, on that macro view, that's a big move for Bitcoin. It takes it up to some pretty interestingly high numbers, right? And we haven't really got the space to collapse down too much further on that weekly chart. So therefore, we are talking about short-term price action, not long-term. So if we are going to see a 42K Bitcoin, it's going to be very quick, and it's going to be ripping a band-aid off, and then we're moving rapidly to the upside, right? So we saw an 8% drop today, and we pretty much recovered most of that almost instantaneously, right? And I'm going to go into that right now. We're going into the hourly now, guys, and we're going to pay attention. We did not deviate, we kind of deviated away from my expectation, okay? So my expectation was that we had this A wave coming up here, followed by a B wave, and then we were looking for a C wave up, right? We measured the distance of our A wave. We had good targets associated with that move. And we're thinking that we were targeting out here towards that 51K area. What actually happened is we did not actually move higher than wave A. Instead, we saw a collapse, okay? This puts into question what was actually going on here with this wave count. The wave count down is fine. We got the ABC down, that makes sense. We had the ABC up, that made sense, and the ABC down that was before that. So the wave counts here leading up to this move was absolutely fine. But this interesting kind of level right here where we started to push up with this A wave, there was definitively only green candles on this hourly chart. There was no downward move for a B wave. The B wave came after it, but we never actually saw this C wave in. This was an interesting move, and it's incredibly rare. These things don't normally happen. You don't normally completely invalidate a TA of an Elliott wave count, considering all the wave counts before it were correct. So this is an odd piece of behavior. So then we start thinking, what's actually going on within these candles? Why did we stop here, and why did we start to pull back? And I started to analyze a few of these candles, right? So we obviously had the upward direction here. And this particular candle here on the 15th of December at 2000 hours, we had a high, and you can see this just up the top right-hand side here. So feel free to check this, by the way. It is on Bitcoin USDT pair, 1 hour, Binance as a data source. The high at 2000 hours on the 15th of December was $49,500 to the penny. Now, obviously, we've been talking about this for quite some time. These to the penny scenarios are all over the place, all on this hourly chart, right? And 1 is rare, 2 is very odd, 3 is it's more than just a coincidence, right? And what we saw here was a cap being given to Bitcoin, as in there's a resistance being forced into this position right here, and then selling pressure occurred. Then we started to see ourselves kind of find a bit of a bottom. And we saw this kind of come in here. Now, this particular candle right here, we can see that the low was $48,550 to the penny, and we bottomed out, we started to move up, and then we started to pull back down. And this is where things started to get interesting, right? We started to pull back a little bit, and then we started to see a bit of a green candle, and then we come into some of these lower moves, right? Nothing odd until you get to the 16th of December at 1700 hours. Here you can see that the support level was gifted to Bitcoin at $48,060 exactly. Okay, so it was given good support just here on this low. We opened up the next candle and it fell down lower after that. And then it fell down lower again. A new low was also set just down here. Then we started to see a green candle form and then a more downside swing, right? I mean, this continues, this kind of motion of support and resistance given at key points in time of this particular pullback. And then we see ourselves finally finishing off down here with a low of $45,750 exactly to the penny. And then we start to see the push back to the upside here. Okay, a low again was set at this point again, and then we started to push up slightly higher, a new low was set, so giving it some support, and we started to change that trend in the direction. Okay, so basically here's your ABC down. It completed the ABC motion to the downside, but it was an 8% pullback in total. And again, there's some interesting candles. You feel free to kind of look this one up, guys. I'm not going to go through them all on the video, but it is, as you say, Bitcoin, USDT, hourly chart, Binance is your data source. Feel your boots. But obviously here we can measure this move, right? We can measure that A wave, and we'll just pop that onto there. Apologies, TradingView seems to be a little bit laggy right now. It does this occasionally. And here we can see that the B wave came down, just wicking over the standard A wave comparison. So A wave equaling the same distance as a C wave. We overwicked it a little bit, but we didn't go past the 382. So completes the standard kind of approach of a C wave. A little bit overextended, but we closed above the 1-for-1 ratio. So again, not impulsive. It's not, you know, a 1 through 5. We're not looking for immediate action to the downside, but there's a caveat here, and that is that we started to move up. Okay, but we moved up and we're overbought already. Okay, this means that the momentum isn't really in favor of the bulls. It is in favor of the bears right now. So again, we are expecting to push up a little bit, and then we are expecting a bit of a pullback. What we're hoping for here in this next move to the upside over the next few hours is to stay above the Gaussian channel. Okay, making sure that we get that weekly close above that Gaussian channel before we potentially see that downside that we were talking about on our daily chart, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to measure that distance of our A wave here. Okay, we're going to pull this down. That lag on TradingView is really frustrating. Apologies. Let me see if I can get this actually on the point. It's a little bit off. But here we can see that we're coming down. We're actually, you know, pulled back towards that 618. So again, in line with that. I'm going to pull this up a little bit. Just to, not that one. I'm going to pull the Fibonacci retracement tool just up here. On top of the low area of the B wave. And again, we can just see that the C wave should actually come in at about 48.5K. That would basically complete that ABC move. Okay, I'll quickly just remove that off there. Of course, if the B wave actually does drop down a little bit lower, then of course the C wave will pull back as well. So we'd be mindful over any potential moves here. It's a bit too early to really call that B wave being completed. But once we have that B wave in, we'll know how high C wave is likely to go, the most probable area that's going to go to. So this means actually we'll go above the Gaussian channel, right? And there's no coincidence that we'll do that over the weekend. We'll get the close position just there, in my opinion, and then we'll be down again, moving into the lower areas as we go into next week, in my opinion. So basically, as soon as we close Sunday's candle, it's fair game for this to then be pulled back down, in my opinion. So overall, overbought stochastic RSI on our hourly, heading to overbought on our weekly, but heavily oversold on the weekly. Heading to overbought on the daily and heavily oversold on the weekly. So the bigger macro picture is that we are pushing up to big all-time highs. But there is so much volatility and so many things going on the smaller time frames. If you're ever in doubt, do zoom out. It is where you want to be focusing in on. Right now, Bitcoin, I am expecting more volatility, but I'm also expecting that weekly close candle above the Gaussian channel to keep us all bullish still, while still shaking out any retail investors, and more specifically, shaking out anyone who is using leverage. I do not think it's a coincidence that we didn't actually set this C wave high here. I think everyone was thinking maybe we're pushing up, and actually we went down. And I think that is just clear manipulation going on in terms of people maybe going long at this point in time and then actually bringing the market down to liquidate those positions and stomp them out. Obviously, there's loads of people also thinking that we are going to be going into a bear market, or that we're going to 42K, etc. So I am incredibly mindful of short positions, which again would be pushing the price up to liquidate those ones. So lots of things going on, lots of things you kind of have to focus in on. But if in doubt, just hodl on and of course zoom out, pay attention to that weekly chart, and I don't think you're going to regret it. Of course, you know, I'm not a financial advisor. I do not offer financial advice. Chris doesn't offer financial advice, but we do look at these charts and we read them and we give you the most probable outcome based on what these technical indicators are telling us at the moment. Guys, if you have found this video useful and informative, then do hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then do go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With that said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.